What's up, everybody, and welcome to The Setup.
Hi.
She can be a little slow sometimes, guys, that's all.
Man.
Well, welcome to The Setup, episode 2. Thank you guys for hanging out with us last week, and
Yes.
we are excited to have you back this week. Listen, before we go any further, if you have not hit that subscribe button, make sure you do that now so that you can stay up to date with every single video that we post. And be sure to share this with family and friends. Sharing is caring. So care for someone today and share this broadcast with someone who may need it. Last week, we talked about baggage claim. We talked about the dangers of bringing that baggage into your relationship. We talked about the fact that it is inevitable. Everybody comes with something. Doesn't matter what it is. Everybody comes with something. We talked about the importance of making sure you deal with some of that stuff before you enter into that covenant. Making sure that you get some counseling and taking your time to take care of yourself, and don't just get married and then throw all of those bags onto your spouse, but handle some of that stuff before you enter into that covenant relationship. And you know, one of the things that we started talking about and touching on last week that we just want to go a little bit further with this week is how your undealt with baggage is going to affect your children. It's going to affect them one way or the other. It doesn't matter what you say around them, what you don't say around them, what you let them see, what you don't let them see. Spiritually and naturally, what you refuse to deal with, it's going to open up a door for your children to have to deal with. And so we want to just kind of touch on the importance of that. And you know us, we like to share some of our personal journey and how some of our personal baggage have affected our children. And how some of those things have negatively impacted them. I think I remember when we were, our oldest son was in preschool at the time. He's 12 now. And we were taking him to a performance with his preschool. It was a big day, like a big hoo-ha for them. It was a huge thing. And he was one of the main characters in their Beauty and the Beast play performance thing. It was a moment that we'll never forget, but we were talking about that moment, and we were, it was years later, and we were talking about it and just kind of reminiscing, and we asked him if he remembered, and he said, I remember that day. It was the worst day of my life. We were like, what? The worst day of, how was that the worst day of your life? And he said, because all he could remember was our arguing and our fighting. And so we had to, take that, it was a rough time for us. We had no money. We had nothing, back during those times. And I think there were a couple of things that I waited to the last minute, quite frankly, to get for him.
He waited.
I waited to the last. I'll take that. I waited to the last minute. It was a Sunday after church, and we had to get him to the performance, but we had to find him a white collar shirt and a red tie. And so we couldn't go to Walmart or Sears or any other, like real department store. We needed to go to a thrift store. So we went from thrift store to thrift store to thrift store to try to piece together what it is that he needed. I was so frustrated and mad at myself for waiting to the last minute. And she was frustrated because we were doing this running around and rushing, and it was just too much. And so we were just arguing, and I was getting out the car, snatching him up, taking my frustration out. Come on, boy, let's get, this is for you. What you crying for? What you getting emotional for? Taking that frustration out on him, slamming the door, and, just did not realize how, our inability to communicate, that part of that baggage that we brought into the marriage, our dysfunction was negatively impacting him. And a moment that should have been a beautiful memory for him, should have been a beautiful moment for him, ended up being remembered as one of the worst days of his life because of our inability to handle our conflict well, our inability to not make that moment about ourselves, so much so that we forgot about the one that was in the middle of it. And so that was a part of that baggage that we both brought into the marriage. I want to be right. It's about me. She want to be right. It's about her. So in the end, one of us is going to be right and one of us is going to be wrong. And it's going to be me. I'm going to be right and she going to be wrong. And in her mind, she gonna be right and I'm gonna be wrong. And we just couldn't let that go. And so that need to be on top, so to speak, became more important than how our actions and our behavior was affecting our son. And so that was one of those moments where we really started to realize how our dysfunctions were affecting our children.
Yeah. Yeah, it was affecting him. It affected his day. It affected the memory. And so to his surprise, that was his first memory of us arguing.
It's crazy. Like that was his, and and I think because that was his first memory is why it scared him so much.
Because he never saw
it. We tried to do a good job of keeping that away from them, but that moment we didn't. We became selfish in that moment, and so it affected him. So our baggage, our issues, our dysfunctions started to negatively affect him, and we started to notice it as we had more kids. On top of all that dysfunction, we added more. We added 3 more on top of all that dysfunction. So now you got us and our issues and our baggage, and now we got 4 little lives that we are responsible for cultivating. And so we started to recognize how our issues were negatively impacting them. So the baggage that we brought into the marriage was not just marital baggage anymore. It became family baggage. Wow. So it wasn't just her and I opening it up and digging through it and what are we going to pull out today? But now it became her and myself and the children. What are they going to pull out today? What are they going to manifest today? It became real in the Mayberry household real quick when we started to notice some of those issues. I mean, I had issues with self-hatred and rejection and abandonment and my self-esteem. And, I look at some pictures today like, what in the world did I have on? I mean, I didn't care about myself so much so that, how I dress today is like a real step above, where I was back then, but I just didn't care. Like I wore my self-hatred. I wore my lack of confidence. I wore the fact that it was just not important for me to take care of myself. I didn't think that I was worth it, but I started to see that manifesting in my children. Each of my children started to manifest those emotional issues in different ways. And we were wondering, like, where's the self-hatred coming from? What is going on with these emotional issues? Why are you talking to yourself like this? Why are you feeling like this about yourself? And we started to realize that they're getting that from us. They're picking that up from right here. So now what do we have to do? I have to stop and take a cold, hard look at what it is that I'm allowing to remain undealt with in my life.
I love when you called it family baggage. Family baggage.
It was no longer just, when we talked about baggage claim, and we called it baggage claim because, excuse me, I dropped my little remote there, but we called it, just dropped it there. It's okay.
Drop my little remote
shut up. We called it baggage claim because when you're going down the aisle, we talked about when your bride is coming down the aisle to meet you at the altar, or when you are coming down the aisle to meet your future spouse at the altar, what you don't see is the bags that's surrounding them. And so when you exchange rings, you're also exchanging bags. You saying, take my hand in marriage, take my hand till death do us part, but take my baggage as well. And so we called it baggage claim because you're claiming that baggage. Well, now when you add children to that, when they come out of that, that area, and they are now born into the world, born into sin, my God, born in the world, they are now born into that world of baggage. So now we are accepting them into our family of baggage.
That is so unfair.
Isn't that crazy?
That is so unfair when you realize it. They didn't ask to be here. But so now they have to deal with the curses of their mother and their father.
They have to deal with what we refuse to deal with. They have to deal with what, quite frankly, we didn't have the knowledge, at some point to deal with. I didn't know that it was that important for me to deal with my self-hatred issues. I knew at some point I would have to deal with, but I didn't think that it was that important to deal with it. I filled my days with working and trying to be a good provider and taking care of my family. And so I didn't think what I thought was private baggage would start to impact my children.
Yeah.
But it did. It started to manifest in them. And the only way we had the authority to break that off of them is I had to deal with it in me first.
Yeah, that private baggage is something that when we talked about last time, that we didn't realize how, even though it's private to you, it's almost like you married your spouse, but you also married that bondage and that baggage as well. And so when we are detaching ourselves from it, you have to divorce yourself from what you brought into the marriage as well.
Absolutely.
Mindsets, perspectives, emotions, things like that. And so,
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that it is your responsibility to just take some time. Listen, what I had to do was just take a cold, hard look at what was going on in me.
Yeah.
It forced me to stop busying myself so much, because I was a hustler. I would go cut grass, do security, work my regular job. I would busy myself so that I could shut out the noise, so I didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But now that it's affecting my children, I have a decision to make. Either I say when they get older, they'll deal with it, or I be responsible and say, no, I don't want to leave them to deal with that. So let me deal with it in me so that I can have the authority to break it off of them. And you know what I chose to do? I chose to deal with it in me so that I can have the authority to teach my children how to love themselves, how to appreciate themselves, how to take care of themselves. I had to deal with that. And while I'm teaching them those lessons, I'm crying out to God. I'm hurting. I am, manifesting and yelling and all of this stuff because it's coming up in me and I have to face it. And it's painful to face your dysfunctions. It's painful to face your issues. That's why some of us choose to stay bound, because it's easier to just stay bound and find a way to medicate it. Find something to put on top of it. But it's more painful when you choose to say, no, I'm not going to medicate this anymore. I'm not going to feed this anymore. I'm going to face this thing head on so that now my children can be free from it. And that's the only way. And I think that we started to see a change in all of them in a lot of those areas almost immediately. My oldest son, I think that pushed him into being reclusive. It pushed him into being shy and unsure of himself. And when I started to deal with that in me, this child, you can see a complete change in his personality. Now he's outgoing and he's joking and, he has this sense of humor that we didn't think would ever come out of him because of the way that he was in the beginning. But my decision, our decision to deal with those dysfunctions and those issues and stop talking to myself and treating myself any kind of way now gave me the authority to break that off of them. Her issues with her pimp-like behavior and her drug dealer tendencies. Because I think the world needs to know who you are. We tell the world, we've told the world all about my issues and my testimony and all of that. You can, if you type my name in on YouTube, you're going to see all of my laundry out there so that y'all can get delivered and get healed and set free. Now it's time to talk about yours. That pimp-like behavior and them drug dealer tendencies. You got to be cold and you can't be too caring, can't be too loving. You just got to be cold and unattached, very detached. Would you say?
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah.
So it definitely affected the way I was raising my children.
Yeah.
It was affecting my marriage. And I am very open with talking about that. That's not something that I shy away from. But I did realize that me being so cold and raising daughters, how it affected the way that they, okay, you know what? Now that's how it affected the way they believed in themselves. And so as a mother, we're supposed to add value to our children. We're supposed to be that word of affirmation, consistently for them. And so it was very difficult for me to see the importance of doing it. If I told you the month of April, hey, you're beautiful, that should last you for the month of whatever, for the entire month. And so I had to realize that was not healthy.
I told you that I loved you already.
Right.
I told you I loved you.
I gave you a hug.
Right. I gave you a hug last month.
Last month, I didn't realize that was important until I started asking myself.
She wouldn't let me sit like this with her.
but it was
See, this is new.
it is not very new. Okay,
couple years.
I would say don't do that.
Couple years.
But I had to realize what that was. It was almost me still protecting myself, me still being attached to my baggage, me not realizing how dangerous it was for me to live with being so cold. Yeah. So sometimes even me not being vocal.
Yeah.
Would also hinder the way that affecting my children.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was affecting the children. It was affecting us. It was affecting our communication. And we had to just be honest with, I think we had a few, a few yelling, screaming, throwing shoes across the room until we could really sit. Don't you dare.
No. Because this is the thing. I'm one of my baggage was rage. I used to fight a lot, and it wasn't to where I was going to leave you to where you can walk away. You were going to crawl away once I finished fighting.
We talked about that in the last video, and how I got bad knees and you tried to take me down at the knees.
But the point is that, and so I had that had the potential to turn into a murdering spirit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was very dark, very cold.
You wanted to kill?
Well, because it was
gonna kill me.
No, I was not gonna kill you. I'm talking about when I was fighting and before we got married, before everything else. It was if I'm fighting on the street, there was no such thing as the individual walking away. Like
y'all know who to check first.
And so it was a thing to where you had to prove yourself. You had to prove how cold you were. That's crazy.
And you brought that into your marriage.
You had to prove how unloving you were, how ruthless, like you don't care. And so I had to prove that when I was fighting. And so from there,
there's a spirit of pride that develops because you don't see that as being wrong.
Yeah, like you don't see it as being wrong.
It's right. You should be like this.
You see it as, and it turns into as, oh, don't mess with her. Yeah. Because she's now with us. And when I say us, I'm saying in the sense of I was with the ones who were running things. Yeah. Selling the drugs and different things like that. And so it put me in a place of acceptance. Yeah. Which sometimes when we're looking for acceptance, we don't realize that all acceptance is not good. Yeah. And so because I was looking for that, I found it in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And
that is definitely something that you don't want to pass along to your children. Don't want to, because what happens is when you refuse to deal with it and you start passing that stuff along to those children, when you realize I was looking for the wrong things at the wrong time in the wrong places, what do you think you're going to leave them to do when they start making their own decisions and moving on their own? You're going to leave them to start looking for what they didn't get at the wrong time in the wrong places. And you can't be upset because of your refusal to deal with your issues and your dysfunctions. Yeah. So now you left them to deal with it the only way that they knew how. And you can only pray to God that they have the sense or the strength or get connected in a way with people that can help them recognize those dysfunctions before it gets too late for them. Listen, sometimes you need somebody else to point out your issues. Yeah. Sometimes you need other people around you that you can trust. Find a therapist, a minister, a friend, or somebody that you can trust to speak into you and to reveal what it is that's in you. Sometimes you need somebody to step back that's going to love you enough to tell you the truth about, you do that. Yeah, when you say that, it does make me cringe, but I don't say nothing because I love you. But since you asked me, I'm going to tell you that is what you do, and it's not a good thing, and I'm here to help walk you through this. You got to be willing to deal with your junk so you don't leave your children to swim in it. You have to be willing to open up those bags and pull that stuff out so that they don't have to pay for your refusal to get delivered from what you need to get delivered from. And you make practical moves and practical steps. As we started to experience healing, now we start developing strategies for pouring back into our children, right? So when they have low self-esteem, one of the things that she started doing that was wonderful with our oldest daughter was words of affirmation, teaching her to affirm herself, teaching her to love herself. I started watching how I greeted her. I would greet her with, hey, beautiful, or beautiful, I love you, or beautiful, make sure you do your homework. Oh, my beautiful print. I would affirm affirm her, and we would encourage her to speak those things over herself.
Absolutely.
She started having her to write words of affirmation down and put it over her bed and put it over the mirror and, put it in areas where she won't forget so that she can remind herself. So even if you don't hear anybody else say it, I can remind myself that I am strong, I am smart, I am wise, I am beautiful, I am this, you speak value into yourself. But we started pouring that back into our children, and we began to see the radical change. Our youngest son, we saw, he would manifest this rage and this anger when he was younger, and we realized and learned that it was just a part of his defense because of his low self-esteem.
I thought you were about to say a part of his DNA.
Well, it was a part of his DNA.
It was.
That rage and that anger, but that's how he defended himself. That's how he covered up his being unsure of himself. And so we could have been frustrated because in those moments when you're raising kids and you got one that just won't seem to line up, you get frustrated and you start to feel like, what am I doing wrong? Am I really cut out for this? What's going on? You start allowing people to label your children. You start allowing people to tell you should do this, put them on medicine, take them to see this and do. And we started to say, no, God, you gave us this gift. So that means you put what's necessary inside of us to properly cultivate us. And we started praying and fasting and really lending our ear to God concerning how to handle our children. How do I handle my son? And because of that diligence, because we prayed for him, because we would lay hands on him, because we would do deliverance on him, because we would affirm him when he would get angry and manifest. There were moments where, you would think, I'm going to pop him or I'm going to do this. But there would be moments where we would, if he did something mischievous, we would have to just stop and say, I love you. It's okay. We're going to clean this up. And this is why you can't. We started to explain to him. And when I tell you that child has done a complete turnaround in his personality, he's so loving and compassionate. Now, don't run up on him.
No.
Don't run up on him. His mama will come out of him. Don't run up on him. But he's so loving and caring and compassionate. And, he at his school, he's known as one of the compassionate kids. One of the kids was having a breakdown in his classroom, and he got up, took it upon himself to get up. His teacher wrote us about it. Got up and took it upon himself to go and sit with the little boy, gave him some tissue, and made sure he was okay before he went about his day. He's just turned into this compassionate, loving young man. But that is because we took the time to come out of our frustration, deal with our baggage, stop sitting in our stuff, so that we can now be empowered to help them through theirs.
And one of the things sometimes as parents, we think that if we that we are bad parents. When you are addressing your own personal baggage and you have to see and look at it in your children, like, okay, I know he picked up that from me, that trait is from me. And so sometimes you really do have to forgive yourself in the process and focus on the fact that, you know what, I'm a good parent because I'm actually admitting this is my issue and I'm going to deal with it. And so what I'm doing is I am closing the door so that my children don't have to suffer from my baggage and from the generational curses and everything.
And you're not going to be the perfect parent.
No.
We are not the perfect parents.
No.
We get it wrong. We apologize to our children. She get it wrong more than me.
He gets it wrong.
We apologize. I have to tell her all the time, go apologize. Go and make the head. Go and make that right.
Well, this is the thing.
You shouldn't have looked like that.
I say that children actually will make you better. And so
they will.
They will make you, they will teach you grace. They will teach you patience. And so that is something that I have learned from all four of them. And so and
you need a spouse that, like me, that's going to be willing to tell you when you're wrong.
Absolutely.
And it's going to say, baby, you're wrong.
But see, this is the thing about it but that took...
See me holding her hand and taking her through this.
But that was something that we also had to realize, is because I had to become that place for you, that safe voice for you. And so, and it's fine.
You said something key, like you have to be...
What I say?
When you're in a marriage, you have to become a safe place for one another.
You have to become a safe place for one another, because you would never want to go... Listen, I would never fight in a location that I didn't feel that was safe for me. Because I needed to know the surrounding. I needed to know where I was going to fight. I need to know what's, and so you have to realize that in marriage, you have to fight to keep it together. You're dealing with two individuals who have different perspectives, who learn different, who communicate differently. And so there's going to be this, not a tension.
There's going to be a bit of tension.
But there's can also be a healthy
while you're
conflict.
figuring, it's a healthy tension though. because you got to figure one another out.
And so it's okay. And so you have to become your spouse's safe place.
Absolutely.
That is one of the rewards of loving what God created when he created marriage is I will always have a safe place in my spouse. And the moment you misuse the safe place, you misuse the person, is the moment you have actually, I don't want to say disobeyed God, but you haven't sought God concerning your spouse.
And you know the thing about it is, before you enter into this marriage covenant, for those of you all that might be dating somebody or engaged or looking in that direction, if you can't see this person being a safe place for you, abort mission right now. If this person is a gossiper and they talk about everybody else's business and I just can't see myself confiding in this person, then you're wasting your time, because in a marriage, and we're going to talk about this in a later video, but in a marriage, your concern becomes my concern. My responsibility is to care for you so much so that you don't have to worry about your needs being met, and the same vice versa. And I'm not just talking about physical needs, but I'm talking about your emotional needs. I need to feel so safe in my marriage that I know if I'm having a breakdown or having a moment that she's got me, and the same vice versa. I've got her. If you don't see that happening, then you need to seriously consider this before you take this step, take this thing any further. For those of you all that are not married, but for those of you all that, I have single parents out here. We have a mixed audience. Those of you all that are raising your children, alone. You feel like you don't have anybody else there that sees what you're dealing with. Listen, you have it in you to press through those hard moments. You have it in you to press through those frustrating moments and take your time don't let anybody put you on a racetrack. Take your time and figure this thing out. Take your time and deal with your dysfunction so that you can walk through your children and walk with your children the right way, so that you can raise them up the right way. Cut some nonsense out so that you can make room. Sometimes when your life is set up a certain way, you got to reprioritize. So if you're a single parent and you're listening to this, yes, there is room for you, and it is necessary for you to deal with your dysfunctions so that you can help your children. Find safety in friendships. Find you some covenant friendships. Get you some people that you and your family can be around to help you deal with it so that you don't feel like you have to do life alone. So the bottom line is, deal with your baggage so that your children don't have to deal with it later.
I agree. I think the biggest thing, whether you are a single parent or you are, married, and you have children, the key is to where children don't come with a handbook. There are many books written about, how to, what to expect when you're expecting.
All of
these amazing books. But I always say that children don't come with a handbook, but you do have the Holy Spirit. And so what we don't know, what we may seem to need direction on, we have the opportunity to ask God, how to steward over this child when this child is acting out different things. And so
that's so important. Every child is a perfect and unique gift from God. And so if you want to know what's going on with your child and how to deal with it, seek the giver. Ask the giver. He has the instruction manual. He's going to help you through it. He's going to walk you through it if you will sit still enough to listen.
That's the thing.
This is not an impossible task. This is not an impossible journey. We're not telling you all to do something that we have not taken the time to do. We have taken our time, and parenting the right way is not easy.
No, it's not.
Being married the right way is not easy. It takes work. It takes effort. It takes time. It takes energy. But you got a lifetime to do it. Don't feel like you got to get it right overnight, and don't feel like you got to get it right all the time. Give yourself grace as long as you're willing to do the work. So
one of the things, one last thing, but
now she got everything.
No. But one of the things that I love about with being a parent and being married is it's going to be hard, but there's so much joy in the reward of it. Because in the reward of me parenting correctly, I break the curse. I destroy the statistics. I destroy these things to where my children have to suffer. And so it's so many rewards of fighting this season, or not season, but just continually to understand that even though it's not easy, it's going to be hard, it's worth it.
It's worth it. And you can, and you start to see the fruit of your labor. My oldest son is so wise, and just talking to him, they're so inquisitive, they're intelligent, they're creative, and we are starting to see the fruit of our labor. So it wasn't all in vain dealing with all of her baggage so that they could be healed. We are starting to see the reward of that, and we're loving it.
God.
We're enjoying it. So listen, don't be delusional. You got baggage. I don't care how perfect you think you are.
Oh, no, I don't. I never think I'm perfect.
Don't be delusional.
You talking about me?
No, I'm just saying. But you must feel convicted.
No.
If the shoe fits, wear it.
No,
if
I don't think I'm
over your head.
I don't think I'm perfect. I think that I just submit to the process.
That's good.
Easier than you do.
Oh, Satan, you a liar.
Yeah. So
I submit to the process.
No.
It is more difficult for me.
Yeah.
Pray for me. That's a part of my baggage. I'm trying to work on letting go. She made me mad just a little while ago, and it took me a little time to get over it.
Okay.
She admitted she was wrong, but it took me a little moment.
Yeah, I'm always the first to admit that I'm wrong, and I have no problem with that. And that's something else that I want to talk about on the setup.
Well, we'll talk about that in a later video. Right now,
Yeah.
Right. So she's usually the one that's wrong. So that's why she admits that she's wrong first. So all in all, deal with your baggage.
Yeah, deal with your baggage so your kids don't have to suffer.
Yes, we don't want the kids to suffer. So we hope you guys got something out of that. Listen, take some time this week to identify some baggage in your life, some things that you've been sweeping under the rug. Identify it and make a commitment that this year you're going to deal with it and be delivered from it. We're going to get in a group, our Facebook group, Life with the Mayberries, and we're going to help you make a plan for your family, plan for dealing with your dysfunctions. We're going to answer your questions, and we're going to take this journey with you. So make sure you're a part of that group. And again, make sure you subscribe to our channel for future updates. Thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Bye.
I dropped my little remote that stops it, so now I got to push the button to stop it.
You're going to push it? Okay.
You can push it. Let's push it together.
Oh, my God.
And it ain't go off.